Oh, and there you can see it. Dragon Priest banned out both sides, even Paladin, even Warlock, and the secret hybrid beast.
Pretty much rope on the majority of turns. So it's a matter of whether one of them can perhaps set the pace, drag the other into the other one's style a little bit. But I honestly think they're both far too experienced to fall victim to that. And it couldn't have set up any better, of course, with the random queue order, both people choosing which deck to play first, and we land on a Hunter mirror in an overall series mirror.
Yeah, you say random, but I also heard very similar in style and approach to the game.
Fair.
I'm just saying. I think a lot of people do random, but I think when you're playing against somebody else who's really good, you always try to get them.
Do we really want to have this conversation?
I know it's late in the day. I know that queuing up one player doing it at random means there's no edge to be had. However, I've talked to a number of players who just, they've told me they try to guess what order player's going to do it in. I don't know why, because they're smart as well. And everyone's smarter than me, and that's a pretty easy one to pull off, but you choose one, you go. You got to win with all three.
I know we've used all the A material already, and we're scraping the barrel now, but do we really have to talk about pick order? Come on.
Look, Dan wanted to talk about it earlier.
He really did. He really did. Anyway, Diamol landing. The face of terror is in play. Bunnyhoppor doesn't really have development here, but Casie is missing the immediate card to push the advantage, which is Crackling Razor Maw, something that we do see present on Bunnyhoppor's side of the board.
I don't think he's too keen to necessarily coin this one out every single time, though. I mean, the threat of another Razor Maw, even just like a Sprint Ball Candle Shot.
Yep.
There's a lot that disrupts this effect, so I think it's just Candle Shot, go ahead. Coin is such a valuable tool in the matchup where you're fighting on even footing, but at some point you got to make a tempo play.
Choosing to put the 1 into the Diamol gives him a little bit of flexibility moving forward. It means it's vulnerable to this explosive trap if and when he chooses to play it. Also, was about to get to, and thank you, Lords of Hearthstone, for illustrating the point that it also gives him a lot more flexibility on the coming turns with Spring Pause. And it also means if when additional minions get played, if he does need to do 1 damage to that Diamol with a Candle Shot, then that's already done, and he can then use any given turn to swing the Candle Shot at a different minion instead.
I mentioned swing turns. I'm kind of looking at this Animal Companion, and, you know, 1/3 of the outcomes go pretty wrong. 2/3 of them, however, go pretty good.
Sorry, which one's the bad one?
Oh, the Huffer. Just dies to your opposing Candle Shot.
Deals 4 damage.
It does.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
It deals 4 damage when you play correctly.
Amen, brother. Not too unhappy about Leok. It's about the same thing as Misha in this spot.
Until the Misha comes back the other way, which it doesn't, fortunately.
Casie interested, of course, keeping the tempo and driving the pace of the game himself. He's already got a Spellstone in hand with a Master's Call. So being able to land a Spellstone first, even if it's just for 2 beasts, oftentimes, you know, that can be good enough. Now, with Master's Call on the following turn and not much else to do, I'm not necessarily convinced that Casey's too interested in that. But honestly, 5 mana, 2 3/3s, you have me interested.
I wonder.
I've played Spellstone for 2 a lot while playing this deck and various other Hunter decks. It's just, if it's the most stuff that you can do on any given turn, it's usually a decent idea.
Honestly, I'm not sure how other people summon 3. I mean, mines are pretty much consistently 2 throughout.
Right. Have you tried putting some of those 2-mana spells in your deck?
What do they do?
Well, it's a secret. I can't tell you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to play it then.
Okay,
I mean, I don't even know what it does.
Fair.
Ooh.
That's a bingo.
Taking a look at Casey's road to how he got to this point. Pretty much any way you slice the European playoffs up, it was going to be tough.
Yeah.
Take note of Casie and the Wind Fury, the Plant's choice as the Death Rattle and Dire Maul. Having extra minions on board is typically way more important than dealing extra damage in this matchup. It is a constant fight for the board for quite some time.
Yeah, I will say, as much as I was, you know, advocating for if we rolled a Huffer, go face against the 1/2, there has been situations in this matchup where I definitely learned my lesson very quickly, where even, you know, I would build up a, you know, 8 attack, 10 attack even Scavenging Hyena, and try and just go face with it because it represented so much damage. But in the end, the trade was just a stronger option because the damage is just so easily recoverable from the opponent with armor gain from their 2 hero cards, and then the potential of a bunch of lifesteal from Rexar, and just losing board is so huge in this matchup.
Losing board is like almost everything, I feel like, in this matchup. Yeah. The Spellstone, that's one of the reasons I feel like so many players drove over towards the Subject 9 Spellstone variant, is that the mirror match was going to be vital this weekend. It's, very clearly a lot of the successful players chose not to ban Hunter and not to build a lineup that banned it. And if that's going to be the case, you better have a good matchup in that one.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, a little bit of bamboozling going on here, I think, with Bunnyhoppor playing out the explosive trap, but at the same time respecting a 3-2 and taking it off the board that would have died to the explosive trap anyway. Puts a little bit of doubt in Casey's mind. It also takes the most threatening target for, like, let's say, a Dire Frenzy off the board, so it wouldn't connect to face and also be on a Crackling Razormaw, which is a great target to do it on.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to end up doing what Bunnyhoppor did. I think Dire Frenzy is the main one there. Yeah. But the Bamboozle is a nice little side effect there. I think that's quite interesting. There you can see who Bunnyhoppor faced off against on the side of your screen. It's, yet again, I'm just going to basically tell you to think about the same thing I said on Casey's road to it.
He beat some real good players and lost to a couple of real good players. That's basically the story of everyone's through Europe playoffs.
And honestly, just throughout playoffs in general, like as the years have gone by, you've seen the top competitors continuously see themselves above everybody else time and time again. It just seems like every single year it continues to get stronger, and that's really just because that is what's happening.
Yes. And I think, trickle-down economics is a myth, definitely when it comes to Hearthstone. Like the good players, if they're the ones that keep getting experience, that doesn't filter down through the system. They just keep getting better at playing these high-profile tournaments.
Wait. So let me get this straight. You mean when other people gain something and they don't give it away to other people, someone else doesn't get it?
Correct.
That makes sense if I think about it.
It does, yeah.
First secret of the game for Casie, I imagine he has some interest in applying that here in some way. The Huffer's got the wrong stat. You don't necessarily want the front end as much as you want the back end of this matchup because, again, you want your minions to be just surviving on board efficiently.
Right. He's just going to play empty board. Freezing Trap here. Yeah, looks like it. Just needs to get that Spellstone buffed up. The rolling the 4-2 there, the Huffer is a particular detriment to Casie because I believe that Explosive Trap is still in play right now. Has not been dealt with since that kind of unusual looking sequence from Bunnyhoppor where he killed the 3-2 while playing the Explosive Trap.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what you're seeing in this matchup is a nod to the variations that take place, where if you try to get aggressive, it does sometimes work, but you pretty much have to have the goods to back that up.
Yeah.
If at any point your board gets picked apart and you lose that tempo, it's going to be tough to snag it back. So both players have opted to play, I'd say, fairly defensively, and just continue that battle for the board until one of them finds a way to break that serve.
Yeah, and it's what I was getting at earlier when I was talking about, big hyenas. I've been playing mirror matches where, I just drop a hyena early, roar on the board, they can't deal with it, I get it up to 8 or 10 attack, try and attack face with it, or do attack face with it, and if they just have Hunter's Mark or are able to clear it out with Flanking Strike or something very efficient, and you just lose the board, that 10 damage you gain just isn't as much as you think it is when you're playing Hunter and you feel like you have all this constant damage flooding through. This is not a Leper Gnome Wolf Rider deck. You need board to deal damage a lot of the time.
Another thing to really take into consideration is the effect that the hero cards have on the game. The further you are behind whenever one of those hero cards hits, either the less impact yours has or the more impact your opponent's has.
Right.
So being able to keep that in check is a very major deal. And Bunnyhoppor here goes for the double Scavenging Hyena attack with the Wolf. This is pretty much the last of his hand. He was hoping that wasn't the case. It was the case, and suddenly he's about to suffer the consequences of that being the case.
Yeah, that did not pay out whatsoever. Big risk for him to take, but you saw him shaking his head even as he made the play, which was then accentuated as he saw that it was freezing trap, because I think he recognized quite quickly that he was so far behind on board that he needed to take a big risk like that.
Welcome to Spellstone. That's why it was teched in.
So he top 6 Zul'jin next turn, or not next turn, the turn after, and then coin it out.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's going to need some help here from Bunnyhoppor. And that's not it. Ooh. That is
no option.
That is about the least exciting Tundra Rhino I have ever seen.
Tundra Rhino is one of my favorite cards. Like, probably my favorite Hunter card, narrowly beating out Scavenging Hyena. So you can tell that I am thrilled with this current Hunter deck that we are now playing, which features both.
Kill Command is one of my favorite Hunter cards. And let me tell you, I am thrilled.
I've been thrilled with every Hunter deck since 2014.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't you be lumping Death Rattle Hunter into that. I was pretty thrilled with that deck, too.
That's fair.
Game 1's going to go over to Casie. The Spellstone is there.
I will fight with honor.
Hey, casters, roleplay so every time the hero takes damage, you take damage too.
I'm not doing that in an even Warlock matchup.
Same. Oh, you can cut several words off that sentence to apply it to me. I'm just not doing that.
Period.
Yeah.
That's the end of it. Saldo, you're on next match. I'm not doing that.
True story.
I'm not doing next match either. Hey. That's because this is the last one. Casey's going to be on an even Paladin. And I'm looking at a pair of cards in hand that these are pretty much the bread and butter of the deck.
So if you had to pick the perfect filling to go in the middle of these two pieces of bread and butter?
It would be not drawing my Divine Shields, not drawing my Wind Fury minion, and probably drawing a Blessing of Kings.
Okay. Is there any game that Evenlock has that can prevent these Corpse Takers from running wild? Like, what kind of start does Bunnyhoppor need to be able to contest this kind of stuff?
Well, we saw Casie fight this one in the previous match, and it really is about just continuing to fight for board. And I think that means aggressively playing things early on and, you know, fighting for it. A lot of times, as even a Warlock, you know, turn 2 is a turn where you can justify life tap. In this matchup, however, I think Bunnyhoppor needs to be a bit more aggressive. And I think he needs to get on the board and make sure that Casie doesn't get on to a big lead. Because if that happens, Bunnyhoppor's going to find himself, instead of, you know, taking a big hit from Blessing of Kings or a True Silver Champion for tempo, those cards instead are just going to start punching him, and he's going to start losing life very rapidly as a result.
Right.
So, you know, the Homunculus with the Spellstone in hand is the pretty ideal situation. It's not so much the importance of the healing of the Spellstone, but more so the size of the damage that the Spellstone can deal. Now, that being said, I think I would have liked to see the Plated Beetle first. I'm not sure it matters in this situation, but perhaps you can catch Casie a little bit off guard. You know, in this situation, you play the Plated Beetle first, and then you go into Homunculus. If Casie autopilots and forgets to attack the Homunculus, it gets to bump off a Divine Shield sometimes.
Okay.
Semantics thing.
Must destroy.
Bump off a Divine Shield and live. Rather, I should have said.
Well, Corpse Taker number 1. Slice number 1 of the bread and butter.
Ooh, this is going to get ugly fast. I feel like Bunnyhoppor is... You know, the weight of double Corpse Taker had not quite set in yet. It just gives you such an enormous lead. Tarim already in hand. Valinir rearing and ready to go.
Yeah.
And this isn't one of those equality, avenging wrath, I have a Spike Ridge Steed already kind of hands where everything gets a little bit you know, murky. It's just clean with lots of good minions. So heads up for here for, you know, Bunnyhoppor continuing to fight very aggressively. He just doesn't have much of an option.
Yeah, the first one was answered pretty well, though. And now Casie has decisions to make. I was about to say, are you committed to this second Corpse Taker? Because, of course, there's some merit to holding on to them until some buffs come into play. And, you know, Glass Knight does basically the same job, right? Because you're behind on board, they are both just Divine Shield minions that probably have some form of taunt.
Yeah, there is, I don't believe there's a punish for this. Perhaps if Casie drew his one copy of, you know, Windfree Harpy would hurt, but I'm thinking Crystal Smith Kangor. I think the Divine Shield is more important right now.
Okay.
And there's only 2 Divine Shield minions in the deck, but I think this operates a little bit better overall because Casie gets to roll in a Corpse Taker. And perhaps the lifesteal on that rebuffs the Glass Knight. Whenever you heal, it rebuffs it.
Mm-hmm. So Bunnyhoppor has been doing as you advised, just playing out minions very aggressively, and he's had about the best possible hand you could hope for to be able to do that. 2 Beetles and a Homunculus so far. But there is, of course, an opportunity cost that comes with that, and that's pressing Life Tap as much as possible. So you can see that the hand sizes are actually pretty much equal here. You know, Casie is going to draw a 7th card on his turn and pretty much contest the hand size pretty evenly. And, you know, he's supposed to be the deck that's just dumping out his cards and playing aggressively. Even if it comes down to a threat-for-threat value battle, even Paladin is pretty well equipped to fight it in the late game.
The second one is just so good.
Admirable's just freaking out about Corpse Takers
It's so
right now.
good! It's the reason you play the deck is that card, basically.
Just go move in with ball control, why don't you? And finally, the answers have run out now for Bunnyhoppor.
Yep. Now it's back to, well, I hope this works.
Yep. This Corpse Taker is getting busy. And there are 4 copies of cards that absolutely destroy Bunnyhoppor next turn with this thing left alive on the board.
Yeah, this is terrifying if you're in Bunnyhopper's seat. You're thinking to yourself, what on earth do I do to get out of this if my opponent has Spike Ridge Steed, if my opponent has Blessing of Kings? The answer is fairly limited to draw Spellbreaker.
Yeah. Nothing as of yet, though.
And the Tyrion joins the hand. The premium cards have been drawn.
Yeah, it's weird because, like, Bunnyhoppor will actually have let out a sigh of relief this turn, right? The fact that no Blessing of Kings or Spike Ridge Steed landed, he'll be like, whoa, okay, maybe I'm in this. But, like, he has no idea the quality of the hand that he's facing on the other side.
Yeah, there's just not a chance. Casey's got the goods.
It's worth addressing briefly. You know, we've talked so much about it. I feel like Casey's play has slowed down just a touch for this series so far. Not just in this game, but also I noticed it in the one before. And I think maybe after making a couple of pretty glaring errors in the previous series, he played excellently overall. Just some dumb mistakes, honestly, from not thinking things through enough.
Yeah, he certainly did. But I will say, you know, kind of revisiting the point of Bunnyhoppor is going to need some heat to really get out of this. Doomsayer proves to be once again that card that can really bring that back. And so for Casie, this is a very important turn. Bunnyhopper's going to roll into 8 mana, and Doomsayer going off on turn 7 is the primed opportunity for Bunnyhoppor because he gets to land Lich King in that scenario.
So I've got a really important question for you, Admirable. Where do you want this buff from the Valanir to go?
The next minion I'm going to play.
Which minion is that?
Well, that's a great question.
Because we're rolling into turn 8, right?
Oh.
Yeah. So here's the thing: we're rolling into turn 8. So from my perspective, I really want to play an 8-drop next turn. So this turn with the Doomsayer there, you could actually potentially play out some of the smaller 2-drops from your hand and still swing the weapon to try and get that big landing on the 8-drop.
Yeah, and the only place you don't want it to land really is Tyrion.
Yeah.
And that's because Tyrion's Death Rattle overrides. It gets overridden, rather, by the Valanir on top of that.
Right.
But that is one of the primed opportunities. Bunnyhoppor just said, there's no way that my opponent's hand is you know, weak enough that I can justify not playing a Lich King in this spot to play around Repentance.
Got the Argent Protector. But yeah, Casie, I mean, I was talking about something else, but the heads-up play to take the Repentance there was super clutch because he knows what that Doomsayer means. He knows that Bunnyhoppor wants to follow it up with a tempo play, so it's a very quick equation to solve. My opponent played a tempo Doomsayer on 7, they're curving into 8. What do they want to do? They want to play Lich King. So what does that mean? I play Repentance, then I can smack their Lich King and play a Lich King of my own.
Yep. Casie also, you know, a very avid Even Warlock player. He's played it a ton. And it almost feels like in almost every single tournament I've seen him in this year, he's brought Even Warlock and had a strong performance with it. And, you know, at my time watching him, my initial foray into Even Warlock, I learned a ton from watching Casie.
No Black Knight in Bunnyhoppor's list, by the way, which by extension means no Black Knight in Casey's list either. But important in this to note that Casie had no concerns of playing around that when he played out the Lich King. He knows full well what the deal is.
Reporting for duty.
Not on my watch.
Split the buffs. There's 2 Spellbreakers on the other side.
There's an ooze at least. It doesn't solve the problem of the Valanir long term, but it will at least reduce a little bit of damage.
Yeah, the major issue here is the nature of how equality lines up. You know, Bunnyhoppor probably is not at the luxury of effectively playing around any sort of equality shenanigans. It's just not really how the deck operates. It's a big pile of very strong minions and drawing lots of cards.
Right.
You life tap. You play some number of Hooked Reavers and various other things. You get beat up.
You get equality'd, you cry yourself to sleep at night. You
Yeah.
try again next time.
First, you try not to cry, though.
If you can avoid it, that would be better.
It's really tough not to when this happens, though. You spent your last 10 turns building these Hook Reavers. You watch them grow up.
I think we may see one and a Shroom Brewer here instead, just to mitigate some of those tears.
Trying to split the difference. I mean, one Hooked Reaver does put an awkward amount of pressure on Casie, and it's enough to force this if Casie has it anyway.
Yep. Might as well giddy up this True Silver, right? You've got so many weapon charges hanging around.
4 points of burn. Let's go.
Yep. You got so many weapon charges hanging around, and they all kind of overlap each other with the Valanir, the True Silver, and the Ashbringer still to come from Tyrion as well. Might as well get going. That looked like a Spellbreaker, just on a glimpse to me it is. Does that even help?
It does.
Short answer, yes. Better question, does it help enough?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Because I'm not convinced it does with the Tarim in hand. And as I'm double checking it, probably not enough. I mean, there are some ways here I think Bunnyhoppor does live through it, but there's just so many awkward things to consider where every single line has an opportunity to get punished by something you do, that at that point it's close your eyes, think about what you believe your opponent has in hand, and then make a choice.
Homunculus coming down signals to me that we're going to see a Spellstone play here instead of a Spellbreaker play. Spellstone Hooked Reaver instead?
It is possible that Bunnyhoppor actually just doesn't Spellbreaker in this spot because you get the Spellstone. And because you have the Spellbreaker still in play, what ends up happening is you get to disrupt that with the Acidic Swamp Ooze. So now it delays the 4 damage from the weapon, and that falls into a minion which you later silence off.
Sure.
It's pretty smart, honestly. This was a very solid play.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Lands on Crystal Smith Kangor, though. And the 2-cost minions are very much where Casie wants them to land.
Spellbreaker of his own for Casie, and let's not forget that there is an Army of the Dead in Casey's hand. And when he plays his Army of the Dead, it's not going to be as explosive as the one that ended up beating him, because he has already drawn most of those huge powered minions that Firely got for free. But there is still some things like Wind Fury Harpy hanging around in the deck that can do some damage.
Yeah, a lot of small stuff, and a lot of spells still left in the deck as well.
Yeah.
Again, Greymane's there, Wind Fury Harpy's there. Those are the 2 biggest ones left.
Even Paladin is just a deck full of chunky boys. There's so much power that you can keep putting out for so many turns.
It's very even Warlock-esque, where you think it's like you think it's something, and then what you realize is it's just a bunch of good cards.
Yep.
Enough good cards will put pressure on anyone.
Very true.
Computing.
It's like there's two Tyrians in play right now. The Valinir one and the actual Tyrian itself.
Yeah, he has essentially just built his own Tyrian.
Dang Spellbreakers. Bunnyhoppor very interested in preserving Taunt.
Oh.
I think that's enough to do it.
With the Avenging Rat, he needs the Avenging Rat to just do a little bit of damage to the Homunculus and a little bit to face, which is an almost certain outcome. Yep, there we go. That'll do nicely.
Not quite a certain one, but, you know, didn't take very much to get it done, and Casie now has a 2-0 lead over Bunnyhoppor.
Yeah, the amount of different permutations that work.
This is looking pretty good.
We can only hope that throwing isn't also Casey's nemesis, because if he can keep it together from this point, he has a very, very favorable position. And yes, I've been trying to keep it more objective than when Tyler was involved at championships recently, where I was openly rooting for my teammate while casting.
I think that's okay. You gotta just get its full discretion is all.
You mean disclosure?
Disclosure, yeah, that's the word I meant.
Okay.
As well as discretion, but mostly disclosure. In terms of the
full
literal
disclosure
sense,
at your discretion.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
But mostly the disclosure part.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yes, full disclosure, I am very heavily rooting for Casie to win this match.
Did you do any voodoo rituals before the match?
I did not, no.
And you call yourself a team player.
Into our strength.
That's the next step for budding esports organizations.
I mean, Mojo Master Z, he's got to be able to do something for the team. That's all I'm saying.
That's a great point. But we now reverse the fortunes, because we've seen Evenlock fail as a couple of tricky matchups against the rest of the happy with how it's been.
It's a good deck. I get it.
As I said before, this is a man that knows his Evenlock.
Maybe I'm just washed.
Maybe. Coin Master's Call in a response to a Doomsayer. Not a play that I've ever seen before. Haven't seen this interaction too much, but it makes sense to me.
Think about like the old Doomsayers versus Tempo Mage. That was like...
You just coin AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about it versus like the a lot of token druids. They just take that turn to nourish and draw cards.
Right.
I think it's like one of the most punishing things you can actually do to a Doomsayer.
Draw cards against it.
Spend your mana on the draw on the card, draw card.
Yeah.
Your stuff's going away. Yeah. Got to do something with this mana.
Yeah. All right. I'll buy that for $1.
Really? I got a lot of those if you really are going to pick them up for $1 each. I'm like $20 by the end of this week.
I was going to say $20 limit, and I'm good.
You're going to spend $20 on that? Now that I'll spend $1 on.
Turn 4 Twilight Drakes?
Sign me up.
All right.
Seeing a Dire Frenzy.
I'm also seeing a Freezing Trap.
I'm also seeing a Spring Pawn and a Hunter's Mark. So I guess what we're saying is Bunnyhoppor's got a lot of options.
I guess what we're saying is things that we can see on the screen.
Well, I mean, if you want to break it down literally, yeah.
Yeah. But you are right. What we are alluding to is that there are many efficient ways to deal with the problem of an over-contested minion on the board.
What I like about this casting relationship that we have right now, you've got the words to flower out my ideas, but I've got the ideas in which the words are planted and then grow.
I love how perfect a demonstration of the concept you were trying to explain, your explanation of the concept was. That was so good.
Namaste. It's only hour 14 of casting.
Yeah, we're good.
Everything's fine. What about just both? What about you blow it up
All of the above.
and
yeah.
you get the freezing trap?
For those times where you can't decide whether you want to eat an entire bar of chocolate or an entire bag of potato chips, why not just do both at the same time? That's good living.
If that candy hasn't been made yet, I think we got $1 million idea, and definitely no one else can steal it from us.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned, I believe it was in the last series with Casie, that Hunter does a lot of things that Warlock generally fears in this matchup. But one of the panouts where Warlock was able to come out ahead was when a Hellfire lined up against a Spellstone.
Oh, yeah.
And that is something that is a real possibility right now, with Bunnyhoppor choosing to go out of his way, really, to develop a secret on an empty board. Felt like he might have been going towards juicing that Spellstone. Well, now he's hit the 5 mana.
I think it's a double-pronged attack here from Bunnyhoppor. I'm sensing that he's much more interested in Dire Frenzy than he is in Spellstone right here, and that the Spellstone is meant to reload.
Okay.
That's my instinct.
I would be inclined to agree with you. But I have spent a lot of time recently playing Hearthstone with and watching Zalay play Hearthstone. And it is turn 5, and the Spellstone is green, and it costs 5. And it makes a lot of stuff.
You are making some excellent points right now.
Yeah.
Can I interest you in 7 damage protected by a freezing trap?
It looked like he traded. He did trade. Admirable, you have a shocked look on your face.
I mean, Hooked Reaver's the reason, but I'm trying... Oh!
And suddenly...
Bunnyhoppor's a genius!
I mean, if that's the case, the trade happened, like, if that's how he has to remove it, the damage would still be free, right? Like, the trade would have to happen.
Well, he's got a freezing trap in play.
Right.
So the issue with this is that Casie has the Acidic Swamp Ooze.
I'm not buying it.
I don't know.
No. Not sold. Not buying, not sold.
Not even for $1?
No.
You said you had 20 in the bank. This is still pretty frightening for Casie, though.
Yeah, it is. Let's get the freezing trap dealt with. And he does have some pretty strong defensive options coming out now with Hooked Reaver and now Homunculus Spellstone as well. Dropping the Homunculus this turn, keeping himself alive. That pushes him down to 12. Double kill command in hand for Bunny already. Just that 1 mana off the hero power to finish the job.
An Animal Companion actually is a pretty important draw here, I'd say, because what this allows him to do is actually not invest too much into pushing. Like, he doesn't have to just jam a kill command, jam a hero power, and play his hand face up to Casie. You know, it's largely about the Animal Companion, and if Casey's more interested in taunting on a following turn rather than he is in using a Spellstone, suddenly the double kill command ends the game because there's 8 mana available.
Right.
Now, what that would mean for Bunnyhoppor is I think he actually would want to roll Nisha in that case, because this offers him the direct trade. So instead it's a Scavenging Hyena, you trade it up, you run into Spellstone, and you get to connect 4 damage with Leok. Oh, he's the 4/1 in play as well. So we'd actually get more damage than that. Excuse me. That makes a 1, 2, 3, 4 for Defile as well.
Your magic shall not.
And based on the current hand, he is not currently dead to double kill command.
Yeah, he's skating on thin ice, though.
He really is. That Spellstone is healing for 5, though, and then that goes straight into a Blood Reaver Gul'dan, so if it's going to be any time, it has to be pretty much now for Bunnyhoppor, and that is not it.
There's got to be a minion for Casey to do it on, too, and unless he wants to hit his own minion, it's not healing.
I'll happily hit my own minion.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you're going to 8.
He doesn't have the transparency to know that he has to do it his own minion.
Your opponent, you know, the range you're considering is often 7. It's the kill command plus the hero power, so the Bone Mare is super likely to hit in this situation, I think.
You're not wrong.
If Casie...
Bunnyhoppor Bunny touched it. This will send such a clear signal. Yeah, he passes it. Oh, that may have just saved his life.
I think that definitely did.
Yep. It's just such an easier play to justify, right? Play a Shroom Brewer, be safe, is an easier play to justify to yourself than Spellstone my own minion to be safe.
Yeah, and honestly, it's like, the fact of the matter is that even if he's thinking about the Spellstone, it's just so much easier to Bone Mare and go, I can just Spellstone later. I'm at 8.
Right.
My opponent's not going to kill me with 1 kill command plus a hero power.
Right. It's coming down to a wire because there are 2 Spellstones inside that Zul'jin now. Depending on where these other spells go that Bunnyhoppor is now casting, well, he could or could not end up with a huge board of 3/3 wolves at the end of the turn.
Yeah. I mean, you also mentioned Zalae and the Spellstone on 5. What about the Gul'dan on 10?
Does it cost 10?
In play. Maybe you notice there's 5 extra life, there's 2 extra minions, and now the hero power is outscaling the game. You know, we saw Davido in a couple series ago, or last series rather. He was almost able to get out of it with a Gul'dan super late into the game with 1 health left.
All right, strap in, Admirable. The sequence and direction of these spells is massively important. That's huge. Secrets go first. Full board of wolves. Yep. And I don't believe there's too much more removal to come. This is close to perfection for Bunnyhoppor here. Yep. He got the secret down first, the wolves were then summoned, filled the board. He got the Dire Frenzy after that, so it landed on a minion, and then he got the Master's Call after that to be able to have maximum chance of drawing out buff stuff Dire Frenzy minion.
You would have liked to see the Animal Companion hit?
Yeah. That was about all that went wrong.
You really can't ask for much more, though. However, I do think Casie is not in the worst shape in this spot. It's not great, but I don't think it's the worst. Gul'dan is a heck of a card.
Sure is. There's a heck of a lot of damage on board.
Your magic shall not save you.
Yeah, that's a bit wiser, I think, to trim the damage. You know, it's just 1. But after turn after turn after turn after turn, that 1 turns into 4.
So 22, that's 3, 6, 9, 11. The kill command is 16. The hero power is 18. So Razormaw, Wind Fury, or +3 attack are both not lethal, I believe, if that quick count was correct. Recount 6, 9, 12, 14. Hero power is 16. Kill command is 21. Yes, he is 1 off.
Oh, that's a buffed wolf, isn't it?
Must be, yeah. Yup.
That means Bunnyhoppor's going to preserve the 2/3. I'm actually not convinced that Bunnyhoppor needs to add anything to the board position. Oh my, the Dire Maul's buff 2? Okay, well now I'm not so convinced of what I just immediately said.
Suddenly I regret everything.
I did not... He's only going to go with the 1/6/6 though, so I think this opens his nose to a second Hellfire.
Hellfire, yeah, exactly. Casie frantically counting something. Not entirely sure what it is because he's looking real dead to me. If he plays the Lich King, he can only remove the 6/3 or the 2/3. Like, removing the 2/3 would technically be the most damage off the board if you're playing Lich King. He's playing Spellstone. Similarly, I guess.
Technically, does it technically keep him alive? No, not even close.
He's dead on board.
For now.
Bunnyhoppor's going to take game number 3, which brings us to a 2-1 score. Still in favor of Casie, though. Good game, and then it just keeps doing fair things. And then your opponent starts doing unfair things.
It's a very fair deck. I think that's why so many players connect to it. Like, it never really feels like the deck is carrying you to victory. It just feels like you're making smart decisions. You have good cards, and those things come together.
I feel good about myself now. I'm
Yeah.
good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Yeah. Well,
That's what it feels like to play Even Warlock for me.
you should have cut it short a little bit. The first two, people like you.
At least I know that you think I'm good enough and smart enough.
You definitely are.
Think is the key word there, though. And that's the problem right now.
Turned our
Everybody
curse
thinks and nobody
into
ever
our
does.
strength.
Don't think about what that means.
Just do it.
It's just gibberish.
Okay.
Doomsayer in the open hand for Casie, a welcome sight to see.
Yeah, you talked about this a lot in the Paladin matchup, how key Doomsayer can potentially be. What's the timing of it, though? Are you doing it on turn 2? Are you trying to leverage it into like the turn where Corpse Taker could land? Like, where's it aiming?
It definitely has some dependency on your hand where you just need to be able to follow it up. And sometimes you do have to risk where you're like, my hand is just bad right now. I have to hope I draw the right card and follow this up.
Okay.
A lot of times that is just turn 2. If you're on the coin, it much more often is. You need a big chunky boy on board to start chopping down these minions that Bunnyhoppor's going to play.
Ooh. So in terms of you need to be able to follow up your Doomsayer, how does coin Twilight Drake into Twilight Drake sound as a follow-up? Admirable's giving me the good old-fashioned thumbs up. Ideal for sound-based broadcasting.
Sound-based. Is there any other type of broadcasting?
Television broadcasting?
Well, what is... yeah, nobody's watching right now. They're just listening.
Yeah, but we're not
Scintillating
involved.
sounds.
This is the most pedantic semantic argument I've ever been involved in, and I do this for a living.
That is what you expect to get with the subtle admirable combo, pedantic semantic. It even rhymes.
That's just our new duo name, pedantic and semantic. Nailed it. Move on.
I'm Nathan Pedantic Zamora, and I'm joined here by subtle semantic Welsh.
I like how my first name was actually Sottle in that.
Oh, did I really say subtle?
Yeah, you did.
I meant to say Simon.
You meant to say Sottle.
I probably did, honestly. It feels more like your first name to me. I don't really know why.
I'm going to pull rank. So this is actually a very important game of Hearthstone that I'd like to talk about,
Okay,
as
I
fun as this
apologize.
conversation is.
Well, we set into place the follow-up thing.
It's true.
Yeah. So we are officially now back to real Hearthstone.
So what does Bunnyhoppor need to do to actually claw back what is now a pretty significant board deficit? Because I imagine, as the Even Paladin, you really don't want to be behind on board this early against Even Long.
Probably not. I'm looking towards a Wild Pyromancer turn. Something's going to happen there. It's a lot about when that matchup, or when that moment happens. Like, what's the ideal circumstance for it? It's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of like a quality Wild Pyromancer, then a secret, so that you have a fresh Wild Pyromancer out. Don't start a Defile Chain.
Must move quickly.
And get extra minions, all those sorts of things.
You can make a pretty sticky board this turn with the combination of the Divine Shield and the Redemption. She's going to go with the Hero Power instead. Doesn't really have anything to leverage on the following turn. There's no like Blessing of King, Spike Ridge Deed kind of stuff that would incentivize him to just really try hard to keep a minion around this turn. So this is just still a good like halfway house play. This board's pretty hard to remove. Casie will unlikely bother to go through removing the whole thing. So even if he does top deck one of those options, he's still going to have a choice. Is that Valnir off the top? It is. That's some gas. Spellbreaker used already by Casie as well.
Yeah, that feels like a really important one to me. Yep. Well. Even Bunnyhoppor's looking a bit tired. This has been a long weekend of Hearthstone.
It seriously has, yeah. incredibly grueling for these players to go through.
I mean, it's kind of easy to just talk about how long it's been, but seriously, yesterday we broke the record for the longest game and the second longest game
Yep.
in the first match of the day.
Yep.
We're talking over 20 hours of rounds have taken place. I mean, you just can't be in your best mental state at that point. I don't think anyone could be expected to be at 100%.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, it's a reason why Casie does so well in big tournaments like this is because the speed he plays, he genuinely does just suffer from less fatigue because he gets his matches over with quicker. His plays are more instinctual. He doesn't just burn his synapses out from overthinking every tiny last detail.
That's kind of how Bunnyhoppor got a PhD.
By burning out his synapses over every last detail, yeah. Sounds about right.
Let me think.
Made it to a championship appearance on the way, rather, and in the hunt for a second championship appearance coming up in the midst of earning that PhD.
Yeah, incredible achievement from Bunnyhoppor.
You know, I think back to summer where he won. He was roping every single turn, thinking about everything, and at the very end of the tournament, he still looked like it was, you know, turn one, game one. He looked purely focused and composed the entirety of the time.
Yep.
I think it's quite rare that I've seen Bunnyhoppor actually just looking fatigued at the end of a tournament. And that, I think, finally, after that long, drawn-out explanation, gives you an idea of how long it's been.
Here is that a quality pyro turn that you've been talking about. Bunnyhoppor decided he has finally had enough, and this is as much a timing thing as it is a reaction to the state of the board. I think Bunnyhoppor could have just held off that board for some time, but he's doing it for curve reasons. It's because to follow this up, he now has that huge play of the Tyrion to come down potentially.
That.
The Vile Redemption interaction, rarely seen, but great recognition from Casie.
Now the choice of the Tarim with the Crystalsmith Kangor or the Tyrion.
That is a big boy Tyrion, though.
Yes, it's a really big one. You know, again, this is really the last minion you want the Valenier to land on, but honestly, just Valenier landing on a minion's generally pretty good.
Yeah. Petition to add dual wielding to Hearthstone, please.
You were just asking for another weird Pirate Warrior style deck.
I just want a Doomhammer in each hand, just going off.
We need a sub-classification of one-hander and two-hander on the weapons at that point. Doomhammer is a two-handed weapon, I believe.
I imagine so. It's a freaking Doomhammer. It sounds like a two. As a man that knows nothing, my guess would be that, yes, it is a two-handed weapon.
Look, at least you finally admit it. You know nothing. Soddle Snow.
Hydrologist seconded coming down. Redemption yet again would end up being incredibly powerful. No such, though. Yeah. Fair point.
You know, I think Auto Defense Matrix, this card was like weirdly criticized when it first came out. They're like, isn't it just a worse Noble Sacrifice? And I'm like, well, not if your opponent attacks into a 6/6. And right now, they have to attack into a 10/8. So Auto Defense Matrix looking pretty darn good here.
Calling it strictly a worse Noble Sacrifice sounds like the ramblings of a crazy person.
Agreed.
Okay. You can tell me who that was.
It's like cards are situational and depend on context.
Yeah. There's got to be a defile here.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're going to tell me you get to value trade an 8-10 or whatever that was, 10-8, yeah, count me in.
And honestly, Casey's in a pretty darn good shape in this one. He's managed to continue to fight the board presence, and he's preserved enough utility in hand that post-School Dawn, he can still, get some pretty good work here done. I've always found that's been one of my big problems in a lot of late game even Warlock scenarios is that I've just used a lot of utility. Like in my head, I'm like, oh, if I can make use of the weak utility cards, what that means is I can save all these big powerful cards for later.
What are you classifying as the utility cards?
Mostly the 2-cost cards.
Okay, that makes sense.
I find myself very often using a lot of 2-cost cards because in my head I'm like, these are weaker cards. But honestly, once the Gul'dan is down, those little weak cards turn into perfectly sized things to supplement Gul'dan hero powers.
Right. You rewind to like the Jiraxxus days in Handlock as well, and some of the supplementary cards in the deck, you know, the Sun Fury Protectors and so on, similar type cards suddenly just became astronomically good once you were in Jiraxxus form.
Yeah. One of the big ones I think of too is actually just, I remember that back in the day, is innocuous is like Voidwalker, where the first time I had a Voidwalker in a deck, and went Jiraxxus Voidwalker on turn 10, I was like, oh, I'm protected because my health's at 15. I feel so smart.
This is a big push from Bunnyhoppor, and I think well timed. I think this is, you know, very similar to when you play against a control mage. You get to a point of the game where you have to continually threaten to do bad things to your opponent if they play Frostlich Jaina.
Yeah.
And this is very similar, where you have to threaten to do horrible things to your opponent if they play Blood Reaver Gul'dan.
And this is why the utility is so important.
Shields up.
That 11 life looks like a lot more when you have a taunted plated beetle in the way and clear skies on the other side. Suddenly your opponent goes into a turn of development. It's not nearly as much as, you know, a Sunkeeper Tarim turn was. And Gul'dan looks playable.
Bunnyhoppor deciding to roll the dice here on where this Valnir goes. Close to guaranteeing it one way or the other. He gets on the Pyromancer. Which do you think was his preferred option there? Because you've mentioned a lot that getting it on the 2-cost minions mean that you effectively pay less per stat to then get the buff into play. But obviously getting it on Corpse Taker is getting it on Corpse Taker.
Well, Corpse Taker right now does not have Divine Shield. He's drawn both the Divine Shield minions.
Okay.
And so it's a lot weaker in that circumstance. I think he wants it on the Wild Pyromancer. So that way he can follow up with the Corpse Taker later. It's, you know, he's running out of mana to spend. Double Consecration, though.
Big Damahe coming through.
That's the right technical term for it right now. It does damage your own board, though.
Yeah.
I wonder.
I feel like Bunnyhoppor's window is closing, and I feel like if you're in Bunnyhoppor's position, you also feel like your window is closing.
Oh boy.
Yep. Looks like one and the Corpse Taker is going to be the play instead.
And now that, well, if you play the Corpse Taker...
I know what you're about to say, and it's always true.
Move quickly.
Yeah.
From this point onwards, it gets hero powered. At some point, it has to come down so so they don't hero power something else.
Yeah, it's a true story. I think the Consecration's got to be the push. I really do. I mean, you're connecting so much damage with this Wild Pyromancer if this happens. And if the Wild Pyromancer gets hit by the Blood Reaver Gul'dan hero power, you still get to keep on trucking with that extra 4.
Yeah, it's fair.
And once again, the utility cards demonstrating why they're so important. But Casie is in desperate need of extra help.
Gen and Sun Fury is the only thing that keeps him alive, I believe.
This curse has become our greatest strength.
Guess Homunculus instead of Sun Fury?
3 goes to 6. Keep him at 2.
Fair enough.
That won't keep him at 2.
That will do, Pig. That will do.
Casie looked exacerbated
Yep.
at the sight of it as well. He's so close to turning the corner. And Bunnyhoppor instead forces game number 5. And that means, Sottle, that we have an even Warlock mirror match
spot on the line. Two good friends, two fellow countrymen, two fantastic Hearthstone players. One man with a World Championship spot already booked up in Bunnyhoppor, and one man trying to join him based on one of the best years on the entire circuit in 2018 in Casie. Admirable. What matters in the even lock mirror?
Big stuff. It's about getting big stuff and keeping big stuff and then having more big stuff than your opponent. A lot of this is one of the rare matchups where I think having coin offers the first opportunity of major advantage.
Yes.
And when Even Warlock was super popular in tournaments, we saw players change their Even Warlock lists a lot to try to snag that advantage or manipulate it in a certain way. We saw Doomsayers and Stubborn Gastropods included in deck list, and it's like, this minion doesn't do anything. But what it does do, it prevents your opponent from playing a turn 3 or a turn 4 Mountain Giant a lot of times.
Bunnyhoppor going second kept a Spellbreaker. Your initial thoughts?
It's a nod to Twilight Drake.
Right.
I think a lot of times going second, you don't necessarily keep Twilight Drake, although, I'd say about 95% of the time I see players keep it. When you're going first, however, there is no question about it that Twilight Drake is good enough.
Okay.
If your opponent plays Twilight Drake, it's going to hit a lot of minions and stay alive. So stop it from doing that.
The thought that pings into my mind is, you just said it, one of your big advantages of being on coin is that you get to play a Mountain Giant on turn 3, whereas your opponent has to wait from turn 4. If you do not full mulligan for that Mountain Giant, you are reducing your chances of getting it, which is essentially throwing away some of your advantage in the matchup.
It definitely is, but you consider by the time you get to turn 3, you have 10 total cards in your hand, one of them being coin.
Yep.
So one of the 9 slots is no longer have a chance to be a Mountain Giant. So your increase in it is 1/8.
Okay.
So not a huge one, but certainly not of insignificance. Casie, however, has, in my opinion, one of the most important cards in the matchup early on when you're going first. It's Doomsayer to stop a turn 3 Mountain Giant, the lone copy of Doomsayer.
And it's a one-of, yeah, exactly. You mentioned how there used to be Stubborn Gastropods and Doomsayers. Usually, like, 3 copies during the even lock peak of the combination of those 2 cards. 2 Doomsayers, 1 Gastropod, 2 Gastropods, 1 Doomsayer. Some lists even running the full 4, just to make sure they are in full control of that early game exchange.
And look at that. That's another reason to keep it.
Okay.
If your opponent's going to Doomsayer you, get something in play.
I respect it.
Mountain Giant looks a lot more, what's the word, deal-withable.
Ah, yes, that word.
Yeah. That's the technical term, at least.
Ooh. Pair of chunk boys right there.
Yeah. Also the technical term for Mountain Giant.
Yep. You said the Spellbreaker made the Mountain Giant look a little bit more deal-withable, but without Spellstone or anything such in hand, there is really nothing there. And Casie, now landing the first Giant, does kind of have control of the initiative. He can choose to value trade here. He can choose to go face. He can choose to take the even trade on the Mountain Giant, but again, that is really his choice, and there's little that Bunnyhoppor can do to influence it.
Curious if Bunnyhoppor ever runs into it. Or that. That does cut into some Sun Fury Protector situations there, which actually is quite smart to attack it if you think about it, because then if that 0/7 Doomsayer sticks around, at some point the Sun Fury, protects this Mountain Giant's value trades.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, this is really wise. It also starts to set up, little minute defile turns.
And now with the coin gone and the turn 3 Giant advantage mitigated, now Casie truly does have the advantage of going first in a mirror match, where he is just doing every single individual turn's power spike. He has that option presented to him first. I will say he's missing a lot of those checks right now. He doesn't have another Mountain Giant to play. He doesn't have a Lich King to play on 8. Bunnyhoppor does have both of those things available to him, but still, just by the advantage of getting to do things first, Casie is seizing the initiative.
Yeah, I mean, basically every single time it's Casey's turn, it's an extra turn he's taking.
Yep.
Twilight Drake certainly throwing a bit of a wrench in the plans, but this is also one of those disruptive attacks where now because Bunnyhoppor has 2 Mountain Giants in play, you start looking at that face damage and you go, well, if I just start shipping this, do I end up winning from this scenario? Bunnyhoppor says not yet. The Spellbreaker, to me, is really what's thrown a wrench in the plans. I don't think I've played an iteration where there's been 3 Mountain Giants with a Spellbreaker off the coin to stop a Doomsayer. I don't think I've run into that just yet.
This is a nice Homunculus Spellstone, though.
It very is.
It is a weak turn of development, though. This is one of the first turns where Bunnyhoppor is able to just play a big threat and not worry about anything that Casie is doing. That is a luxury now available to him. Kind of out of those. Dread Corsair, just a medium threat.
Infernal? Yes, Infernal.
Did I say Dread Corsair?
Yeah.
Nice. Pirate Warlock.
You get the skull in play, you toxicologist it multiple times.
Yeah.
And Dread Infernal's about the biggest one you can have. Bunnyhoppor is missing Spellstone. Yeah, that's about the biggest one. Casie smells blood from here. He's the 2nd Mountain Giant, and there's not an effective way for Bunnyhoppor to really fight back. You mentioned the coin and how important that is. There's no 8-mana turn from Bunnyhoppor. This is never a Hellfire, Spellstone, smash Casie for 6 kind of turn.
Right.
And that's a very big deal.
Yeah. The Hellfire and smashing is only going to come from one direction at the moment, and it's from Casie.
Road bumps. Let's get to that time.
Double Defile. Just taking the full clear. Yeah.
Oh, and it sets to 15 with the Homunculus, too. That Homunculus actually was a really important draw.
It was. It gave him the option of just doing it that turn as well. He could have gone Homunculus Hooked Reaver there just to put a wall up, but the Double Defile was actually a really, really strong option for him. And now, Casie having whiffed the Lich King, now we have another one of those turns where Bunnyhoppor can seize initiative. Double Hooked Reaver or Lich King available. But that Gul'dan draw, if there was any doubt in the mind of which of those plays Bunnyhoppor would prefer, I think that Gul'dan off the top seals it.
Well, you saw Bunnyhoppor grab that Hooked Reaver and then went, wait a second, slow down.
Yeah.
Things can get awfully messy. I am about 99% sure this is right.
$14 power versus 8. Story checks out to me.
So my head moves to Spellbreaker Defile and to see what is available.
So many possibilities.
I'm not seeing a full clear. So you can make the 1 by sending the 6 into the 7. You can get 4 off silencing the 7/7, or you can get 3 by trading the 6/5 into the 2/4, but there's just still so many gaps in the chain.
Yep, and Bunnyhoppor here is, I think, now about to take a pretty firm lead. It's the Homunculus being able to trade over here, and then the 7/7 picking up the Bone Mare, and Lich King is clear skies across as an 8/8 coming down. Casey's yet to develop any Hooked Reavers, which means that Bunnyhoppor gets to Gul'dan first after that as well, but he's interested in even just developing more threats back behind that. So he trades over the 2/4, he starts to turn the Shroom Brewers into more presence on board.
Right. I think this is a very smart option from Bunnyhoppor. He recognizes the situation of what Casey's last couple of turns means. There's been nothing really on turn 8, nothing huge on turn 9 either. So Bunnyhoppor knows that he has a very threat-light hand. So that means 2 things. It means a handful of removal, Hellfires and Defiles, or it means that the minions in there are Hooked Reavers. So why bother turning them on and giving him minions to play?
This looked best to me. And once again, I'm trying to spot defiles ahead of time because those are such critical swings to the game at this stage where it is such a poor card in the matchup right up until the point that it is an absolutely devastating card in a particular situation. And you see Bunnyhoppor, he's paying a lot of heed to that by actually just continuing to trade until he gets to Gul'dan. Because this is such a major swing in the game.
He got the juice as well. Double Homunculus, double Hooked Reaver, all forming a beautiful Dread Infernal sandwich. And I think this Lich King could spell lights out now.
The extra tick of Defile, I think, unlikely to be relevant here for Casie. Lich King is so destructively bad. I mean, Casey's reaction to it lets you know just about everything you need to know. Bunnyhoppor going to continue to say, you know what, board is the king as far as the matchup's concerned. A pair of Hooked Reavers here to help fight off, but Lich King getting 2 draws is just massive.
Spellbreaker on its own is just going to do it. Lich King trades through the other. Dread Infernal and the ping go to face, and Bunnyhoppor is joining an illustrious group of players making repeat championship performances. Already achieved it once back in 2016 originally, I think, and then of course already